Not only oil spills, but another progressive move is being taken in Trinidad in the name of profit from oil by moving more and more into tar sand mining, also called oil sands. What is tar sand mining? Since the time of the Iraq War, the price of oil has been rising for us citizens. Some people believe that the oil reserves are steadily dwindling. On a worldwide scale, this is questionable, but if it is true, then the oil companies therefore need to make more money doing different things. Well, I definitely believe that. After all, that's their life. Tar sand mining is the removing of a lot of land, including all surrounding vegetation and topsoil cover. Then the scooping out of underlying tar sand. And finally, the loading up of it onto some of the world's largest trucks. Some even 30 feet tall. Monster machines. What is tar sand mining? Well, it is mining that produces a type of synthetic oil. It's not even real oil, as the factories have learned how to extract the bitumen from the topsoil in order to actually make it work. Not as good as oil, but at least it's a synthetic oil. This, together with C2 extraction, will be taking place much more as we supposedly progress. This is a very wasteful and destructive manner of drilling two wells a few feet above and below each other, and then pumping huge quantities of steam into the upper well to heat the surrounding bitumen so that it can fall into the lower well, where it is then pumped to the surface. Tar sands actually became legal in our country thanks to Bastio Pandey and his UNC administration somewhere between 1995 and 2001. And I'm sure he did many good things in his time for the people. Many people love him. But this was a mistake, and all mistakes must be made known so that they do not happen again. The initiative was let go at one point when the Canadian company Western Oil Sands sold their company to another oil company in the US, Marathon Oil. These experts of Western Oil Sands, experts in tar sand mining from Canada, seemed to have left our country for good. But that's not the case, because they are looking to return now, and only because they see that, hey, they could have some big profit over anybody else. The money and the taking advantage of our land always calls to vultures like these. Them wanting to take advantage of us once again shows that they would like to see us go back to the unjust racist times of the 1960s. But we will get into all of that later on. The PNM later took big steps into this excessive thing called tar sand mining. And this happened around 2009 when the PNM's Mr. Conrad Enil, the then Minister of Energy, announced it. And of course, he announced it while the country was distracted by Carnival. Oh, that's very smart. We must admit, although diabolical, this was quite smart, right? And Carnival is, after all, usually quite a time of excess. So who would notice if a little bit more excess would happen? We will drink our lives away while they dance themselves into absolute richness and push you off a cliff into absolute poverty. It didn't end there though, as the People's Partnership's Ministers of Energy, Carolyn Sipasad Bachan and Kevin Ramnarine, continued with the excessiveness of tar sand mining. If you thought the pollution of normal gas from normal oil was bad, it would be very hard to swallow the fact that tar sands emit 3 times more carbon. Is this what we want to be using in our cars? Is this what we want to be doing to our beautiful Trinidad and Tobago? Well, then let us get those ministers of energy out of their places of position and put some real people in. The only way to do that is to form new parties. Now let me introduce you to Mr. Staines B, a professional speaker on tar sand mining who hails from Canada, where the most extreme cases of tar sand mining happen to be. Now he explains that the tar sands mined need to be refined, and that takes water. He says that 3 to 5 barrels of fresh water produce 1 barrel of synthetic oil from tar sands during the processing stage. Are we talking about 3 to 5 barrels of salt water? No, that would be too good to be true, my friends. We are talking about fresh water. Water that you and I should have. Is it that tar sands are getting fresher water than you and I? This plant that cleans the water was built by an American company named 7 Seas Water, who was contracted and paid huge money to do this job by WASA, the Water and Sewage Authority here in Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, I suppose it is quite a habit to go outside for a lot of these projects instead of finding local technical professionals for the job. Now, we congratulate WASA and 7 Seas for building this plant in a way because it has supposedly provided fresh and clean water to the entire southwest peninsula of our beautiful country. This is truly fantastic and it's a well-deserved thing. But why mess up a good thing by utilizing it for tar sand mining? Don't be confused, we're not against innocent people getting fresh water, but I am definitely against tar sand mining, and this plant seems to be set up much more for mining than for the people, and that is because it has been located in exactly the right place for tar sand mining. It also began construction in 2010, which is when all this tar sand mining started to really take off. Please remember, the citizens, the residents of those areas in the Southwest Peninsula have been crying out for water, fresh water, for ages and ages, and no government ever took them on. Now, when tar sand mining is coming into play, all of a sudden, oh, they care. Could this be a coincidence? You be the judge, Trinidad. The government is pushing to commit Trinidad to possibly 50 years of this tar sand mining, which will leave millions of gallons of fresh water contaminated. Water that could be used for good will be rendered useless. Now, where does all the contaminated water go? Well, it goes into something called tailings ponds. Huge ponds, some about 17 miles across, where it would supposedly sit for centuries so that the water can be ready to be skimmed off the surface and reintroduced into nature. That's a long-term environmental hazard that we're talking about. But luckily, a teenager invented a way of lessening that time considerably. And this either shows that she is a genius or that the top scientific minds in charge are idiots who don't care. Well, I'll answer that question with a question. Have they ever cared? This contaminated water seeps into the water table in the deep earth, and it has been contaminating more and more water in Canada. Is this what we want in Trinidad? Is this what we are voting for? Is it that we are voting for cancer right here in Trinidad? Possibly so. I'll tell you why. Because you can find cancer rates 30% higher always where those tailings ponds are. Do we want more of that in our country? No. This shouldn't be a surprise though, since Point Lisas is experiencing far higher incidence of cancer than normal. And it was even stated in the 2000 budget debate in Parliament that this was happening. we are putting our country into more cancer, and we don't even know it. Thank you very much, Point Lisas. Now, already the government has started clearing away many layers of the surface material from the lands in order to get ready for the tar sand mining. And when asked about what they were doing, what did they say? Oh, it was just for exploration purposes. Please note that the exact places of actual mining have not been officially released by the government. And of course, they're not really gonna do that. But a map of that exploration area has been released. Now, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that there's a connection going on here between tar sand mining and the highway when we see how close they are. The tar sand mining exploration area is right in the middle of that new highway extension. Not only that, but the water plant, sometimes called a desalination plant, that was built by Wassa and Seven Seas, is located right here. Coincidence? I don't think so. Now, they might be quite secretive, but they do, however, love to say that they're getting ready to utilize all the oil and minerals in the South Peninsula. Oh, so progressive. Yes, Trinidad and Tobago, all this progress is supposed to build us a new Point Lisas, according to the ministers. But the biggest question is this highway segment from Debe to Mon Desir going to be used primarily for tar sand mining? Not to help you get to work on time or have connectivity. Mr. Stainsby, as well as several affected residents, do think so. Now, it may have other uses, yes, but its main use seems to be for tar sand mining. Why do we say that? Maybe it's because the refinery at Point-a-Pay got recently expanded to be able to refine bitumen, which also points to tar sand mining. Remember, tar sand mining is about extracting the bitumen from the topsoil, the tar sands, and then processing that bitumen into synthetic oil. Point-a-Pay was never able to do this before when it was operating under capacity, and it definitely was. The refinery at Point-a-Pay expanded and added various parts that would now allow them to convert raw bitumen into the synthetic heavy crude oil. And please note that the expansion now allows them to utilize the synthetic oil even more by converting it into gas products. The expansion might seem progressive to you, but look a little bit more closely. Just because things are bigger does not always mean that they are better. They spent billions of dollars in this expansion, and one of the biggest expansions was to build a gas to liquid diesel plant. And a United States-based company called World Gas to Liquid was contracted to build it. That alone cost $2.7 billion. This entire expansion plan has taken many years, and they wanted to build many plants. But guess what? They all basically failed. The World Gas to Liquid plant especially failed. And what should not seem surprising to you all right now is the fact that Trin, now in the year 2014, has a debt of $15 billion TT. I mean, did you know that Dr. Kublai Singh was fighting this fight ever since the get-go? And thanks to his rallying of the citizens in surrounding areas to speak up, they managed to run most of these government plans to rape our country off track. It just goes to show what we can accomplish as the people of the country, not the politicians and not the owners of big companies with high-profile jobs. It has been almost a decade of his fighting that has saved the country so far. He used walkabouts, printed pamphlets, public meetings, human blockades, and much more. All this has stopped, for example, a steel smelter in Cedros and run into the ground all plans to build an industrial offshore island at Otahiti. These fights even took place in Claxton Bay as well as the Labre area, and people somehow choose to say that Dr. Kublai Singh has only now come into the fight. They even say that he is looking for attention, and they don't realize that he has invested in this for years and years and years. And who is to blame? Some say it's PNM and some say it's UNC or People's Partnership. Well, I have news for you. It is both governments who have caused all these problems by pushing around Petrotrin, because you know the name of the game is oil with these politicians and how they see our country. That's all that they see our country as good for. They forgot about agriculture, which is what built our country in the first place. Please see our chapter on agriculture. Now, who has to pay that disgusting debt that Petrotrin now has? Well, Petrotrin, of course, is their problem. That's why their workers are looking to leave. That's right. They don't want to work there anymore because salaries have been stunted, and Petrotrin itself has said that they won't be profiting for the next 4 years, no matter what. Now, the government did not only expand Petrotrin's refinery, they also wanted something more, much more. And that came in the form of an upgrader. Now, what is an upgrader? It is a completely new industrial site. And this is where the raw, heavy, non-liquid bitumen would be upgraded into the synthetic crude oil. You know, that fake stuff. Now, can you guess who the government contracted to come down to Trinidad to build that upgrader? And yes, they did not get somebody from Trinidad, they had to get somebody else. Well, an agreement was made with Reliance, one of the largest privately owned oil companies in India. It was Reliance who built the upgrader right there in Union Estate, which is right in the south of Trinidad by Labre. Now, so far we have a refinery, an upgrader, and a water supply in the mining and processing of these tar sands. Could there be more? Well, it's government, so the magic word is more. And so it turns out that someone has to supply natural gas to this already expensive, excessive cycle of processing. Who does that seem to be? NGC, the National Gas Company. Please note that Andrew McIntosh, the past president of NGC, said that the entire upgrader initiative was his idea. He said, "I came up with this when I was at Petrotrin many years ago. We got in touch with Reliance and were trying to bring them down." Well, thanks a lot, Mr. McIntosh. It seems that the current president of NGC, Indar Maharaj, has been taking your mission to the next level and riding it full speed ahead. NGC currently in 2014 supplies gas to that place with the upgrader called the Union Industrial Estate. They supply that gas via a pipeline. Remember, that is what they do. They supply natural gas to places via pipelines. Natural gas is basically energy. Well, this Union Industrial Estate, though, has always been part of a huge plan that is sometimes called by many people the Master Gas Plan for Trinidad and Tobago. Who came up with this gas plan? Well, it was the PNM. And that is really what this entire tar sand mining clip is about. Tar sand mining is the last step in this gas plan. Now let's look at a little bit of history here with NGC. NGC built that pipeline that supplies gas to that estate. They wanted to supply gas to the smelters there, which was supposed to be built. All part of the plan. The smelters would melt iron ore, but it would need vast amounts of natural gas, energy, in order to do it. And that's all provided by the NGC, right? Now, don't you see that this all helps out the tar sand mining too? It's not just going to help the smelters, but tar sand mining needs extreme amounts of natural gas. Did you know that NGC is owned by the government? So if you see something wrong with NGC, then you can probably connect that straight to the government. What have the government shown us so far? That they are above the law, right? So what can we expect of NGC? Only the same. And that's exactly why the NGC was in the news recently for illegally awarding a huge contract and that job to a construction company named SIS. Now, in order to illegally award people huge contracts, what have we learned? You have to do it right before Carnival. And that's exactly what NGC did. What is this job that NGC gave to SIS illegally? Well, it's called the Beetham Wastewater Recycling Plant. And it's a whopping $1.6 billion job. SIS is short for Super Industrial Services. They are in construction and asphalt works though, building roads. And yet somehow they got the job to build pipeline and water plants, which they don't have a clue about. Maybe it's because they've always been a prime UNC and People's Partnership financier. Maybe that is why they've been racking up billion after billion in contract jobs since the People's Partnership came into power in 2010. They are running a pipeline from the water plant in Beetham to Point Lisas in central Trinidad, which brings it closer to the Petrotrin refinery in Pointe-a-Pierre. And this only makes it easier to utilize more fresh water for the tar sand mining. Now maybe it will be or maybe it won't, but we must ask these questions. And speaking of asking questions, the main question right now is, why exactly is it that they're going into tar sand mining? What is their reasoning behind this initiative when it seems like such a negative thing for a country? Well, they are pushing tar sand mining because Trinidad has gone into what is called a terminal decline in oil. Yes, it seems that we are running out. And this tar sand mining is being shopped as a way to temporarily stop that decline in oil production. Why not stop relying so heavily on oil for money? Why not improve and expand the food production in our country, the farmers? Oh yeah, I forgot, that's not progressive enough, right? We need big factories and lots of smoke to be progressive. Right. Now we are trying to take a very balanced, objective view of tar sand mining. So don't get me wrong. The Pointe-a-Pierre refinery would be able to take the tar sands and convert it into petrol or petroleum byproducts. And this is very good for jet fuel. But it is horrible for car gasoline. Did you know that normal real oil would usually produce about 5 barrels of gasoline for cars, but tar sand mining only produces 1 barrel of that gasoline for cars? This whole thing about tar sand mining was supposed to be about jet fuel for commercial airliners. But as you could see, that's not how it's being used. And that's because the government smells money. But it comes at a huge environmental cost. So we will have to be paying that price of damaging our environment. Look at these production numbers. Yes, it is very true that we are running out of oil. But the government's choosing to deal with that by moving into tar sand mining just shows how close-minded that they really are. They're not willing to think out of the box. Oil is everything. They don't know how to think about real progress by moving us towards renewable resources like solar power. They just want to keep producing oil no matter how many people it kills with a cancer or evacuates unfairly from their homes. Incredible amounts of money will be made, but it won't be coming to you and me anytime ever. It's going to the pockets of a chosen few, and they will feel so proud because they think that they're pushing the economy in Trinidad and Tobago. You know what they estimate tar sands would produce? An estimated 40,000 barrels of synthetic oil a day. And that's just in the first stage of development. Trinidad and Tobago used to make almost 200,000 barrels of oil a day. So Trinidad, let us take it with a grain of salt when the government says that tar sand mining is gonna save our asses. I don't think that that is true. Now with all this talk about working in oil, we must talk about the trade unions such as the OWTU, which is the Oil Workers Trade Union. What do they have to say about this situation? Well, they are very angry about Point Lisas going outside for international help, when supposedly all the funding that was needed to build this new machine or bring it down, and all the talent that was needed for it, was always available locally. Some people would say that the unions don't like these state-owned places going outside for help because the unions themselves will lose money. Remember, the unions collect a fee, but you can be the judge of these unions. The OWTU President General Ansel Roger is constantly saying that the nation's state-owned enterprises are becoming more and more privatized. That means less money for the unions, of course, but does it also mean less progress for our country because these state-owned enterprises get to involve themselves in some corruption behind closed doors? Is the Minister of Energy Kevin Ramnarayan listening to any of this? I don't think so, even though he says he is. He's ignoring the unions and the people and just ushering forward the nation into a death. Yes, he has been pushing tar sand mining for the longest while. Now, why else would we say that this highway segment is being built for tar sand mining? Well, because the largest, yes, the largest financer in the world of tar sands is the Royal Bank of Canada. Canadian banks have never really treated Trinidad with much respect, and yet we continue to utilize them and even love them. In fact, if you go back in the day, you will understand why we say that they are quite racist. They only used to hire white people, my friends. It is that kind of thinking that made us have the Black Revolution in Trinidad. The Royal Bank of Canada, or RBC for short, was basically replaced in the past by RBTT, the Royal Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. But guess what? They reared their ugly heads back into our country around 2007-2008 when they bought out RBTT. Yes, they returned and bought out RBTT, which was the main successful bank in Trinidad and Tobago. How is this connected? Well, they did this right before the tar sands project was first truly announced in T&T. RBC even went on to promote tar sand mining. I mean, you can't get any more clear than that. The connection. They conducted seminars at that wonderful place, the Hyatt Hotel. And yes, they did lie about it. Looks like the Hyatt should be called the Liat because everybody there lies. What a beautiful exterior that houses such a disgusting interior. And that is what the government calls progress, my friends. I want you to put everything that we have talked about together. Let's connect the dots, Trinidad. Look at the entire south part of the highway. Look at all of its segments together. It goes right through the Union Industrial Estate and links it with the refinery in Pointe-à-Pitre. Perfect for tar sand mining now, right? Don't forget, the water plant is right at the end by Point Fortin. Perfect location, right? As you can see, the dot is moving very progressively through this perfect pipeline that they have concocted, where all the three industrial sites are linked. But most people miss a certain detail that the government tries to confuse many people about. You've gotten this far, my friends. Please don't give up. This is the most important point of this whole chapter. The highway here only goes up to La Romaine. The highway is not going straight from there into the refinery. That's a no-no. It all transfers into a main road. Here is a main road, and it is called the South Trunk Main Road. That is not a highway road. It is a much smaller road that cannot handle all of these big-ass monster trucks that are needed for tar sand mining. So, what do you think? How are they going to complete this perfect pipeline if they can't even get everything to the refinery? Please note, San Fernando, that place right there, is where the main road is passing through, and it is big city area, so-called progressive area, where they don't want to mess up. And I'll tell you why. They would rather mess up small villages with not so rich people. Small villages that are not all selling out with sellout businesses. You know just as well as I know, the government takes care of the rich and they say to F off to the poor. So think, Trinidad. Have you seen the connection yet? The connection is the Debe to Mon Desir road that they want to build. Correct. You see, by building that wretched little highway segment, they connect everything. The water plant, the upgrader, the tar sands, and finally now, the refinery. The highway roads would not only be big enough for these huge trucks to pass through, but it would also be in the village area. And who cares about the village people? Who cares if they have to deal with these big, huge trucks and all the pollution and all of that? The government tries to tell you that the segment is for connectivity. Wrong! Please see our other chapters in this documentary on traffic, and most especially on the Debe and Mon Desir roads. How is it connected? By back roads. Connector roads. The government, though, tries to tell you, the citizens who don't know any better, that the villages in the back, yes, we're talking about these villages here, need the highway from Debe to Mon Desir because they have traffic. Now, the traffic there is on the SS ERIN road. The main road there is where the traffic is. The SS ERIN road alone. Around the Debe trace, because it is the only place in that entire area where you can get to foods, goods, and services. Businesses. So you have no choice, Trinidad. If you live there, you must go there. On that SS ERIN road, which is short for San Fernando Superior ERIN Road. They will always have traffic in their own little way because there isn't proper parking facilities on that road. Remember, the traffic is because of the goods and services, the food that everybody moves to. There's hardly anywhere to even drive because the roads are very skinny. And really and truly, the reversing out of the parking spots is the main problem.
This man is reversing. So as you can see, it's gonna make the traffic come up here until he comes out of the way, and then he goes forward. And as you can see, it still even has some traffic. The traffic actually went all the way down just from one reversal. This person is trying to come out, and as you can see, it's causing a whole bunch of problems just to come out.
Another notable reason for the slowdown of the cars on the road is all of the potholes there. I mean, if you have a big car, then maybe you could muscle your way through, but most people cannot. Why are we buying these big 4x4s to deal with our road problems when we can just deal with the roads, the root of the problem instead? Oh yeah, we need to depend on the government to do that, right? These are just some of the reasons why we don't think the Debe to Mon Desir Highway segment is gonna help Erin Road. Especially because the highway segment from Debe to Mon Desir does not actually replace the Erin Road, but rather it runs in the back of it, where there is no businesses or any kind of traffic in the least bit. So it won't help anything on Erin Road. No matter what, cars will physically have to collect up in that particular place on Erin Road. And it has been said that no one in the area truly started to complain about supposed traffic there until they heard that they might get a piece of a highway nearby. Are we too quick to act without thinking first? Does this situation truly look like progress to you? Or does it look like a setup for tar sand mining? Do not let the government and their sellout friends in these big companies chain up your mind, Trinidad. Now remember, we said that this tar sand mining is a temporary thing that will not last forever. But the time during which it is happening is going to be relatively long term. We will be living with this cancer of tar sand mining for quite a while in our country. Did they consult with us first before making these decisions? No. What a nice government that can do everything for you, right? Now you might ask, where are some of the tar sands exactly in this country that they will get to soon? Vance River, Guapo, Parilands, Labre. All these places exist on top of tar sands. Now what does this mean, Trinidad? It means that many more people than just the 300 families being affected by the Debe Mon Desir Highway are going to be moved out. Why? To mine tar sands. That's right. There's many more people who are going to be evacuated, herded out of their homes to go into tar sand mining. You think that the highway reroute movement is so small and unimportant right now, I know. Well, just you wait. Wait till your house is in the fire, in the path of tar sands. We're such a small country. You know it's gonna happen to you very soon. Wait till you feel that burn. It's not just gonna be Debe to Mon Desir people. Soon it will be you. Yes, that's right. You ushered in your own destruction and the destruction of our ecosystem, our social assets, everything of real value. But this is just the beginning, Trinidad. You might not be able to look into the future, but we sure can. And I'm sure that there's a lot more to come. Let's stick it to them. Let's make it hell for them. They don't deserve to be doing this to us, and we won't let them. This is the last straw, and we don't need to be taken advantage of anymore. Stop the tar sand mining.